Thank you for tuning in to the Realty with T3. I'm your host, Tisha Harris, and the team leader of Texas Trio Team. We are so excited for our guest today, but before we dive in, we're going to talk about our co-host. Who are you?
I'm Deanna Kennesaw. Happy to be here today.
Yes, we always love having you on. And so we're going to speak with someone today that has a really plethora of insights and can really help you with your business and inner growth. So who are you and what keeps you busy these days?
I'm David Pokorny. I am the founding partner of the GCF Group, which is a commercial loan brokerage and small business consulting firm.
Yeah, so commercial, like that's a completely different side of real estate and something that not everyday people know all about. So was that something that you dove in over time, or was that were you in the residential side at one point?
Yeah, so I actually started in the residential mortgage business right out of college, and I did that for 6 years and was really more interested in the business side of things. So as you all know, being in the real estate business, the most challenging homeowners to get financed are the ones that are self-employed. And they were the most fun people to work with. They were my most fun and interesting clients. And I was having to pass those clients off to banks that were familiar with people that were self-employed. And so I built a relationship with a banker that lived and worked in my community. And one day I applied for a job with his bank as a commercial lender because I really wanted to be more on the business side of things. And their HR department declined me in 30 minutes. So I was checking in on a client that I had referred to him, on behalf of the realtor that sent them. And I've made a joke and said, hey, you guys really don't want me. That's the fastest job decline I've ever gotten. I guess at least I got a response, right? And he was like, you want to work here? And I said, well, I think so. I think I understand what you do after us working together for a couple of years, and I'd really like to explore it. And so he got me an interview set up, and I went through the round of interviews, and I think I met with 4 different people at the bank. Wow. And very formal process. And I didn't go through any formal credit training or anything. They just put me right into the field as a commercial lender. I started in the Heights in Houston, and I just jumped in and just
figured it out.
Yeah, and
Wow.
just figured it out, and just never turned back. So it's been a really fun journey.
Yeah, and so what inspired you to want to be in kind of the lending side of, what led you to want to do something like that for your business?
So a few things. I studied finance in school, so that was my general interest.
Not everybody just loves numbers,
right?
yeah. It's that's kind of how my brain works. Finance just jives with me. I understand it. It's kind of innate for me. I was terrible in accounting, which is interesting for a banker. Typically bankers are stronger on the accounting side, so that's a weakness for me. But I've always had good people around me to kind of shore that up. But once I started in, my self-employed clients were so interesting, and I thought, how people made money was really interesting. And, just seeing all the different ways in, the Houston area and Texas and in the United States, how people can really pursue, anything they want. And how, if you're driven and you really take your craft seriously and you want to learn and grow and be the best at what you do, you can really make money at anything in America. And it's truly remarkable. And I could see that too with particularly clients that moved from overseas and came to the United States, or maybe they were first generation. They really recognize the value of that opportunity, which I always found really inspiring and cool. But just being able to watch people, start and grow something for the ground up to build wealth for their family, and to be able to take care of their family. I just love that. I found it really interesting. And one of the coolest parts of the job when I actually worked at a bank was, going to the business and getting to know them personally. And I would know their family, and they would invite me to their family events, and walking through their business and meeting, the key employees, all the employees. They're all key, but the people that they viewed as kind of key employees, and just letting me explore through the operation and see how they made things and how they did things, and who, how each person did their job and how it all came together as a team. And I love that. That's my favorite part of the job. And my approach in building my business as a banker was looking for the businesses in my immediate community that were prominent and that seemed like they were having success, and then targeting them as my potential clients, because they were the successful people are the ones I find interesting and that I wanted to get to know. And obviously they're a better credit risk if they're successful, and so that's better business for the bank. But then I could also learn and grow personally, by interacting with them and getting to know their business. And so, as I was driving around and calling on customers, I'm looking at, whose vans are out there, and who's, the commercial developers, whose signs are up, and just noticing who was prominent, and then finding ways to connect with those people and just asking them to do business with me. And so that was kind of how I broke into, the business world, if you will.
That's so fascinating. I mean, honestly, when I started 12 years ago in real estate, I didn't know anybody. I wasn't from here. I didn't know anyone. And that was honestly the first thing that I did. I was like, you have to get in with the community somehow. And that's the businesses. That's what makes the community economically thrive. And so, I love that. That's really cool that you did that.
Yeah.
Well, and I love too, it seems like you like the numbers, but you really love the relationships. And you would think going into finance that you would like the numbers more, but it sounds like what you found is that you really like having that relationship with the people, and even growing and learning from what you see they're doing. And a lot of people that are good with numbers aren't good with people.
Yeah.
That's a really good point as it relates to my story. Relationship banking, a lot of people believe is dead, and it's really not true. There's lots of big banks that are out there that are on every corner, and those are the places that people visit because they're so prominent and they're so readily available and convenient. And so people have really frustrating experiences with banks, particularly business owners, and feel like banks don't care about them or care about their business. They don't know them. They don't know what they need. They're too big to take care of them. They're just a number, which in the bigger banks is true, but there are so many community banks in Texas, and actually there's been quite a few that have started up recently, which is a new thing. New charters for new banks was dead for more than a decade, and it's kind of reviving, which is great. But I recognized the value of having a relationship, a personal relationship with a banker, and how critical that can be in building wealth and having a successful business, and being able to, not just recognize opportunities in the marketplace, but then having a banker there that knows your business, that is ready to support you whenever you have a need and have an opportunity to grow. And so, I took it as a personal challenge to revive relationship banking. And one of the ways that I differentiated myself within my own bank and, with competitors at other banks was when I would put together a credit package for, our senior credit team to look at, to review and approve. I spent maybe 20% of the time on the numbers, maybe more than that, 40% of the time on the numbers. Obviously they needed to be accurate and they needed to reflect the parameters of the deal so that we had a good idea of what the credit risks were with that particular loan request. But, the other 60% was all about the business owner and the sponsor and who they are, and this is a good character person from our community, and this is how long they've been in business, and this is why they got into business, and here are, the key employees in the company that make them successful, and here's how they work together, and here's who their customers are. And we talked about, over, let's say the company had been in business for 20 years. We talked about, this period of time was really great for them, and this was when they were the most successful and made the most money, and this is why they were successful during that time. And here's a 3-year period where their business was not doing well, and here's what happened then, and here's what's going on in the marketplace now, and this is how it relates to them. We would talk about all those things, and it was really cool because not only would I learn a ton, and it would just give me general knowledge and help me understand how to evaluate and mitigate risk as a business owner myself. But it would also help them hone, their own skills and their own plan for their business. And, being an outsider and not in their industry and maybe not necessarily understanding what they do, I would ask questions that, people within the industry wouldn't really ask because they're doing it every day, and everybody kind of gets, tunnel vision on just being in the same thing every day, and you don't really think outside of the box. And so I always loved asking really thought-provoking questions, and it would, kind of get them out of their daily routine and get them out of the box and think about ways that they could grow and morph their business and practices that they could make better. And so we just kind of, I just went on this journey together with my clients, and where we both just learned and grew together. And while we were, taking care of their needs, and they're growing their business, and, then taking care of their family and all their employees' families, it's just this really cool, environment where everybody just works together.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I would think too, it would help them. A lot of business owners are just hustling, right? Just always trying to go. And a plan like that would be very beneficial to them, to be able to see what worked and what didn't, and when things weren't working, how they pivoted to get through it and past it. Because a lot of people don't think about those kind of things or write them down, right? And that right there is a key to success in and of itself. So that whole plan is just so beneficial to them. More, obviously people need the loan, but that roadmap of being able to go back and see their success helps them plan for the future.
100%.
That's huge.
And so when you were doing that, were you out procuring business, asking for the business, and or were more people coming to you directly, and then you were working on the portfolio?
So originally I was out cold calling. I would, you find out little tricks. There's for sure an art to cold calling, and it can be fun, if you approach it the right way.
Yeah, and so that's how you started, and that was successful. And I think now today, with the way that technology is, people stepping into an entrepreneurial role, or I'm not going to cold call, and it's just I think just the definition of what, or just that phrasing can be very daunting, but it's actually just building relationships is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, and you can make it fun too, So, for example,
what are some tips? Yes, I'm making it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, when I would go and call on a business in the community that I kind of identified as a good potential target, I, first of all, would not wear my suit in there, because you look like you're there soliciting. And so, I would take my tie off and undo my top button and not wear my jacket. And then, I would figure out who the CEO or president, owner, whatever they were, their title was. And I would go in and just casually ask for, oh, hey, is John in today? I was in the neighborhood and I just wanted to say, hey. So I came across as a friend, I knew him, and I was just stopping in and I wasn't there selling something. Finding little ways like that to get past every business owner has a gatekeeper,
Oh, yeah.
The good ones do. And so, finding little tricks to not, not saying be deceptive, but come across in a way where it's not threatening. You're not there soliciting. And I mean, it was almost like a little game, and you would get in, and then they're impressed that you got through their gatekeeper, and so you have credibility automatically, so it was just this fun thing.
Yeah.
And people who own businesses, particularly, I mean, every business owner has to sell something, and good salespeople want to be sold, and so it was just kind of this fun little, just it for sure a challenge, but also it was fun,
Right.
and I think for me, I had a mentor early on in my career when I was in mortgage, that I was working in a Coldwell Banker real estate office, and I had a territory to manage. So I only had 2 offices, to do business with. And the manager that was in that office left, and the new manager came in. And he was a really good leader. And one of the first things he said to me is, I'm glad you're here, but we have a few rules in this office. I want to make sure we're on the same page from the beginning. And he said, the first rule is that we have to have fun. And it was like, okay, I like this guy.
That's how our broker is too. And I love that so much. It's just like, be yourself, enjoy it.
And that really stuck with me. He's like, look, everybody's here trying to make a living and trying to take care of their families and meet all their obligations. And we have to there's no reason why we can't have fun while we're working together. And that really stuck with me. And that's kind of been a motto for me ever since, is just always finding a way to make work fun, not just for me, but for my teammates and clients too,
Right. So walk us through the process. Like you go, get through the gatekeepers, and like you get the yes. Like you had 100 no's to probably get you to a yes, but walk us through like what that was like. Did you have you basically took the ground running yourself for the portfolio for the client, or did you have like a team of people that were with you, like getting them on to the next step?
Yeah. So the success rate was pretty high, actually, because I just kind of figured out the formula, which was the main thing was once I got through the gatekeeper into the business owner, I said, hey, I'm a banker here in the neighborhood. I want to be the premier banker in the Heights. I want to be known I want to do business in my own community. I live here in the area, and I believe in relationship-based banking, and I want that to be available to my community, and I just think that that's the healthiest way to live and do business.
So do you feel like as a business and someone in business, as an entrepreneur, that it's important for you to state your goals to your prospects and to your clients?
Absolutely. I think if you're familiar with Simon Sinek, he is really big on understanding the why. And when you tell people your why, it resonates with them. It's people want to connect, and when you have an emotional connection with someone, it means something, and particularly business owners, that resonates with them. And it's like, okay, this is a real person here that cares, and I know what they're about, and I identify with that. Let's work together. So that was really just personal connection was what it was for me. And the business community is so starved for that in the banking world. And so honestly, it was kind of fish in a barrel, because a relationship based banker is such a unicorn today that whenever they got a hold of that, they're like, oh my God, I had this 20 years ago and I haven't seen it again since. And they're like, I got to get a hold of this guy,
Well, we even saw that through COVID, when all the extra like PPP loans and all that, those that were in businesses with the big banks weren't getting approved for that. Whereas those that were at the smaller banks or had a relationship with their banker, they were getting those applications through immediately and getting approvals. Because I was working with a bunch of people that were that way, and it was crazy to see. It was like, oh man, It was
Yeah.
really obvious during that time how important a relationship with your banker was, for sure.
Yeah. And then even like just people like working inside of their community with people like you to like whenever entrepreneurial, when I was growing up, I don't remember, and maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I am, but I just don't remember a lot of people in my life they were the 9 to 5 go to the job versus the people that were out creating something, creating the shoe store, creating like the art studio. Like, do you think that's something that has really had a spike in the past few decades?
Couldn't say over the past few decades. I haven't looked at it that closely, but you brought up COVID. Absolutely, since COVID.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that's been researched a lot since COVID is the work from home phenomenon became really big for obvious reasons during COVID, and people were working from home and they had extra time because they weren't having to get dressed for work and then travel and commute and all those things. And so people were starting to explore, they had extra time and they were starting to explore what they could do with their skill sets, and self-employment and the start of new businesses is way up since COVID, for
100%.
sure.
I think people were also faced with life is short. What do I spend my time doing, making sure I'm passionate about that?
Yeah.
Right? So people started exploring, maybe I should do my own thing because this 9 to 5 might not be what really brings me joy,
Or if you weren't essential.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic observation. I completely agree. Yeah.
I think a lot of people started doing inner searches on also wanting to spend more time with family. So what kind of job can I create that will allow me to either incorporate my family or have extra time where I can make my own schedule with my family? And people just really started realizing what was really important.
Yeah, and then, but also not only that, but they're living in maybe the small town, like inner city place, and then when they got the freedom, it's just like, I'm not here 24 hours, I'm not happy here 24 hours a day. It's time to spread our roots. Like, we could get an RV and go anywhere,
Yeah.
That was a really interesting time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it changed how everybody thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think more positive came out of it than
I do too.
Oh, yeah.
negative.
I do too.
I think it was to me, it felt like a really good reset on our society for exactly the reasons you're saying. I think people really started to think about what is my value and belief system, and am I really living that out? And it kind of shook everyone to have awareness.
Right.
Like, hey, I'm really not happy with myself or with my work, or I'm not fulfilled, and what do I do to change that? It really forced people to be self-aware and to take a look at those things.
And so what, today, 5 years later, after everything, on the business side of things, are you seeing that people are still kind of on that trajectory of creating their own freedom, and creating their own lifestyle? Or are you seeing kind of a switch back into the workplace? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. There's kind of a few components to that.
Okay.
I'm not totally sure, but I think lobbyists in the real estate industry are putting a lot of pressure on large businesses to push people back to work. I think that, the vast majority of the research shows that people in companies are a lot more productive with a hybrid work and home model. And so the data doesn't support pushing people back into the office every day, but we're seeing that happen with a lot of large companies now. And I think that's pressure coming from the real estate industry because, office real estate has taken a massive
Right.
hit. I mean, we're talking, in some places, 80 to 90% losses in value, in major cities. And so, I think that's kind of an interesting thing going on. Badge swipes are a thing now, in large companies. People are, they'll have their friends, they'll take turns swiping each other's badge in at the door. And now HR companies are, because they're required to go to the
Right.
office 3 days a week or whatever, but they don't want to. So it's like people will team up and they'll swipe each other's badge. Well, now they're doing cameras on the doors to make sure that, the person that's swiping is, it's like this whole battle that's going on. HR departments are like completely consumed by making sure people are
Really
at
there.
their desk, in the office. So that's kind of interesting. I definitely think the entrepreneurial spirit is very alive, and that trend is continuing. I just see people expressing themselves and their creativity and looking for places to make an impact in the marketplace, and wanting to have more satisfaction and fulfillment from their work. And kind of take a little bit of maybe go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I think is really relevant.
Well, I love rabbit holes.
me
Let's
too.
go.
So I personally, I really hate to see generational warfare, socially. Like, as an example, I'm not trying to pick on any particular group, but just to give an example of what I mean. So like someone who is maybe, say, in their 70s and says, well, young kids just don't like to work hard anymore. Those kind of statements are not productive, and the bottom line is that each generation has so much to offer to all the other generations. And if we're sharing information, across all the generations and working together to make a better society, that's the smart thing to do, and that's what we should be doing. I feel like I'd say 15 to 30-year-old generation now, I think that probably falls in a couple different categories. I don't know the exact age cutoffs, but just to be clear about it, they tend to have people tend to have a pretty bad mindset of that group. Generally speaking, you see a lot of negative, comments on that. I went to a concert for one of my favorite bands a few weeks ago, and it was interesting. The band is called the Backseat Lovers, and they're really interesting, but their demographic is that. I went to this concert, and I think I was probably the only person there that was over 27 years old. Like, it was hilarious, and I didn't care. I'm like, I love their music. I don't, but it was so interesting because it was in a really small venue. The concert was in Boulder, Colorado, and it was, which is a college town. So this venue is right off campus, and it was a super intimate venue, and there were no assigned seats or anything. So, everybody was waiting in line, and you got in and just got the best spot you could to, watch the show. And I'm really big on energy and like keeping my personal energy in a good place, and I want to emit energy of kindness and warmth and love and being open and welcoming and approachable and all those things. And that was the atmosphere of this concert. And it was full of people that were, I'd say, 16, 17 to 28. I'm talking, probably 2,000 people. And there was such an overwhelming feeling of safety, and just good energy. I don't know how to describe it other than that. I just felt, I'm not talking like basic safety, like no one's violent, or I'm talking like safety to genuinely express yourself and like be in a great place with great energy. And it was overwhelming. I'd never experienced anything like it. And
You guys were vibing on the same frequency, so it was like,
yeah, exactly. And I've already kind of been paying attention to that age range and the things that they're doing socially and the things that they're expressing that are important to them. And I feel like that group is very mission and value driven.
Yeah.
And I think that's really connected to the entrepreneurial spirit too. So, like I said, that was kind of a rabbit hole, but I think it all kind of ties together.
Yeah.
I really think that group gives me a ton of hope. I think that they're going to make a tremendous difference in the world. I think we have a lot of good things coming because of what they're doing, but I also see it as being really good for the business community too.
100%. I mean, sometimes I talk to people in that age group and they're so spot on, like they're on, they really understand like kind of what's going on in the world, like a lot more than somebody that may, and not to, like you said, not to create a divide, but some people that are in their 30s and 40s, like older 30s into their 50s probably, like aren't turned on as far as like, staying in tune with what's going on in the world as
Paying
much as
attention to it, yeah.
Technology or even just communication styles, like absolutely, I align with what you're saying.
Well, and to that point, I think I know for me personally, there's a lot of things that I don't want to hear about, and I stay away from seeing because they don't make me feel good, and it's and kind of take away hope a little bit, and things like that. It just generates negative emotions, and I feel like that 15 to 30 group has figured out how to balance, that, like staying plugged in and connected, but not letting it consume you to a point where you're getting stuck in those negative emotions.
Right. And then you got to think about it too. I mean, the people in that age bracket as well, I mean, they've had like serious things that have happened in their life that probably have impacted the generation. So, I mean, which each of them do, but I mean, you got to think like some of them, I'm just off the numbers that we talked about, is some of them had parents that were in Iraq and in Afghanistan and war, so they didn't have that as well. And then they had COVID, and so then they had like where they didn't get the graduation, they didn't get the stuff, they didn't get prom, they didn't get those things. So like, is that something that really defines you? And if it didn't, then you have to create that definition for yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, something that kind of plays into that too is wellness. There's also there's a lot more focus on wellness and
it being okay to not be okay.
Not
Having to pretend you're somebody you're not. And I feel like our generation, like we always had to have the best face on and always be happy, and like you couldn't let anybody know you had a bad day. Where that age group, we've really poured into them that it's okay to not be okay and to try to change that narrative.
Absolutely.
And that alone is a freedom and a joy, like, oh my goodness, not to have that I don't know, that stigma or that pressure to just always be okay.
And then plus with social media, that's something that's like huge as far as like if you want to personally go down a rabbit hole of like this is kind of how I'm feeling, and then the algorithm will pick up as far as like let's try these fitness and wellness, and there's so many things, like, so for instance, like have you ever heard of Gaia? Like,
no.
You've never heard? It was like an app. And so, I mean, like I went through my own like panic attack episode and things like that. And I think we all deal with our own bouts of anxiety. And anyways, someone told me about it, and so I went on it, and I'm not on it anymore, but it was very much leaning into meditation practices and like getting you beyond what you're told kind of on the mainstream, and going down deep dives of like ancient history and like wellness, and you could go down any of those things, but it's just like there's something beyond the surface level.
I'll have to check out Gaia, but I also have dealt with anxiety my entire life and had panic attacks and things, and so that's been a big key for me too, just in my personal growth and development, and as it relates to having a successful business too, is keeping myself in a good place mentally and emotionally, and so I don't know what tools are available on Gaia, but I personally have gotten pretty deep into breath work meditation.
I love that.
So
yeah.
I do most of what I do are guided breath meditations, and they're very simple. I mean, my favorite apps are the Breath Source is such a fantastic tool. You can find anything you want regarding breath work on there. So, I have, if I'm, say, feeling sad and I just need to really lift my energy and lift my vibe, I have, multiple breathwork sessions that I can go to that within 10 to 15 minutes will lift my energy and just completely change my mood. Same if, I'm dealing with anger, or, if I'm in a rut and need to be creative and, just feel like I don't have a spark, like I can have ones to go to for that. Or if I'm anxious and need to calm down or go to sleep, or, I have a handful of meditations that I can do for each of those. And then the really cool place to go with it is, if you're familiar with transcendental meditations, is to go more towards that direction and really go deep, reflecting within and connecting to the divine, whatever that is, for each person. But connecting to the divine and kind of all of creation and all of humanity, and recognizing that, creation is, we're all one. One of the most interesting experiences that I've had with breath work is any of the guided meditations that kind of ask you to put yourself in space, and recognize that we feel so detached from the rest of the galaxy and all of the galaxies that are out there, because you really can't see it from here on Earth. We think so small, but whenever you get kind of into heart space, in a meditation that way, and you're really deep and you're encouraged to, hey, now see yourself floating in space and see the stars and the planets around you. And it's like, that's all, we're all one. That's all, that's part of, Earth isn't separate from that. It's all part of it. And you just think about, we're one little galaxy and there's millions of galaxies.
Universe,
and that, space is exponentially increasing every second. I mean, that is incredible. And to think that, as human beings, our, the human experience is part of that. Like, what a tremendous opportunity, it's just really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like you said it earlier, there was that one person in your life that said, it's important to have fun. There's a quote that has stuck with me that, was really a pivotal moment as far as making a transformation. And it was, you are your own mirror. And so if you walk to the mirror and you can't stand what you're looking at, like, it can absolutely, like, crumble your world or inspire you to take the other step. And so is that something that you've walked, or like the world that you've kind of had to create for yourself?
Yeah. I love that quote. That's awesome. I think, I talked earlier about keeping my energy in a good place and really wanting to be love. Like, I want my energy to be love. I think that's what, I'm a Christian, not pushing my faith on anyone. But, I think God created me and all human beings to be love. I think that's what we're meant to be. I think that's our natural state. And I think the more that we can stay in a place of love where that's what's driving all of our actions, I think it just makes the world a better and easier place to exist. And, self-awareness is probably the number one key to mental and emotional health for everyone. Is if you can't love yourself, how can you expect others to? I think that's maybe kind of along the lines of what you're saying. And,
right. Or if you wake up and, like, you're in a terrible mood and, like, you just put that out into the universe, like, you are creating that all over yourself, like, with everybody that you interact with, every being. So, like, the only person that's going to probably be nice is your dog, because they love you all the time.
And they can sense it too.
I was going to say, mine can give me attitude all the time.
No, I love that you said that. I mean, to me, there's a tremendous responsibility to keep yourself in a good place and to take care of your mental and emotional health for exactly the reason that you're saying. Because if you are putting bad energy and bad vibes out into the world, it has a negative effect on those around you. And for that reason, we've got to keep ourselves in a good place, because
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I think that
others.
responsibility you're talking about is actually what those 15 to 30-year-olds have figured out.
Yeah.
The responsibility of it, the ownership of it for ourselves. Whereas for us, or at least for me at my age, it took me a long time to get there, right? You almost, in my generation growing up, we almost thought the things around us kind of defined that happiness, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the younger generation has now figured out that it's not about the things around us, it's about within us and how we can treat
I
others.
love that. Yeah, 100%, 100%. So what are some like tips that each of you, let's kind of like do like a little exercise of like, we've all kind of come to this realization of like, hold up, restart. So what are some things that you love like doing every day to keep you consistent and maintaining that for yourself and for the world around you?
So I want to start by giving a couple resources that are super
Cool.
important,
Yeah.
where my tools come from. So one of my favorite books of all time is called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. And then another one is by Michael Singer, and it's called Living Untethered. And it's all about, what it comes down to is that happiness is within all of us, and it's a choice. External factors should not have an effect on your happiness. You can choose to be happy, and everything that you need to be happy is all within you. And if you work, to find it. But for me, one of the most important things is just being aware of my feelings. And as I'm working through my day, when things happen, just being aware of my feelings and my mood state and how it's affecting others. And really, honestly, that's the key to me, is once you have that awareness, then everything else kind of takes care of itself. It's
Right.
like you go, okay, well, maybe, you and I are working on a real estate transaction, and a client is supposed to close, at 2 p.m. today, and they back out and go, hey, I've just changed my mind. I'm not closing on this deal. That's a really, frustrating situation,
Right.
So in that moment, instead of allowing myself to get caught up in, a knee-jerk reaction of, who does this jerk think they are? And, then you just go spiral, and it's like, you start thinking about, well, it's going to have this effect on me and this on my kids, and what all the bad things. You go, you're doing this to me. It's
All about
personal, and
self.
it's like, now my reaction is more, this isn't about me. Whatever this decision is that they've made, they have something going on. It could be anything.
Right.
Their spouse might have just died, or
Right.
So now my knee-jerk reaction is, I might have that initial like,
It
okay,
stings.
I'm
Right.
pissed.
Yeah.
But then I go, okay, hold on a second. Like, this is not personal towards me. This is their decision based on whatever they have going on in their life. And so I've switched to, when someone does something that's hurtful to me, instead of thinking about myself as a victim and how it harms me, and going down that rabbit hole, and kind of, we all are subject to taking an inventory of, here's what impact this had on me now that you've done this. Now I think, okay, it's not about me. This is what's best for them. And it's taught me how to be more compassionate, and coming from a place of love and compassion, and going, okay, this truly is not about me and what's going on for them that they would make this kind of rash decision,
Right.
And then even inquire, like, hey,
Is there something I could do?
I'm really
Help.
sorry,
Yeah.
this is a tough situation that you're canceling this transaction, but I know you must have something really big going on to make this kind of decision. How can I be here for you? And people are like, they're expecting you to be pissed.
Mad,
And then when
right.
you're not, they're like, oh my God.
You're so understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, and those moments become opportunities, you know, and that can turn
connection.
into a really beautiful friendship, or maybe you have an opportunity to serve them in some way
Right.
because they have something bad going on. And then it, you know, what could have been a disaster for multiple people has now somehow turned into an opportunity. You know?
But doing that, I want to ask, have you come to the realization or had the epiphany that even though you're doing that, you still have to overlay with pretty solid boundaries?
Absolutely. Yeah. But, you know, I definitely agree with that. If you have a healthy sense of self and you know, self-love and self-respect, drawing boundaries is key, you know, in all relationships. But I've just found that, you know, if I'm expressing my genuine emotions and really connecting with people, it's very rare that you
Right.
don't get a positive response to that.
Right.
People feel safe whenever you're genuine.
Yeah.
You know, it's,
That's so true.
yeah.
So what about you? What tools do you
I
got?
think mine are very similar, actually. I love my daily affirmations. I used to do that for a long time, and then I stopped. So now that I'm on the team and we're doing those, I'm happy to have those back. Because you really just start your day. Honestly, when I first started, I was like Googling little things you could be happy about. Because I was because you say, I'm happy for lipstick. I'm happy, you know, for sunshine today, you know, and I was like, those are things that, because you just get in the hustle and bustle, you forget to be thankful for the tiniest things, you know. So I love those. But then I think pretty much the same thing that you're saying, but just kind of putting different names to them a little bit, is really trying to end with choosing to be happy, and that we're in control of that. I found that a lot of my anxiety or things I would get upset about were because of other people and their choices. I found that I didn't get as angry if I could find a way to extend grace and forgiveness to them. Just like how I was saying the other day with my son, he went to camp and he was like, the teacher was so mean and I don't want to go back tomorrow and it's camp, it's supposed to be fun. And I could have been like, well, maybe I need to go talk to this lady. What's wrong? You know, but I thought, was she like that on Monday? And he was like, no. And I'm like, you think maybe she was just having a bad day? You know, sometimes we just have a bad day. You know, can we extend her some grace and some forgiveness and maybe tomorrow go in and be like, we kind of were stressing you out yesterday, weren't we? You know, do you need a hug? You know, that can go a long way. I remember when I moved to Nashville for school, I didn't know a soul. And there was a time where my body ached just for a hug. You know, and there are people walking around that probably just need a hug. It's actually started to be an Instagram kind of hashtag right now. Like, I probably just needed a hug, but I ended up going off on my dog, telling him all the things that were wrong today, kind of thing. You know, I probably just needed a hug. And it's a real thing. Sometimes you just need a hug, you know. So I think it's just realizing people aren't making choices because of us. Like, we did our job. Like in your example, you did everything for that client. You got them to even the closing table, and it just wasn't going to work out for them, and it had nothing to do with us, you know. And so really kind of taking ourselves out of it and going, hey, how can I serve you? And you do have to have boundaries. I have a servant's heart, and people can really just milk that, if you know. But if you're leading with happiness and you're really genuinely compassionate about them, I think that the boundaries kind of end up drawing themselves. You don't really have to put your foot down, you know?
Yeah, I would say mine would be, like, it was a recent read for me, and it had been like a viral thing for a long time, and I kept seeing it, like friends would share it on their stuff, and I was like, you know what, I'm finally going to read it. So Let Them by Mel Robbins. That book changed my life.
Big
like
time.
I had it on my screensaver forever of like, let them do it. You know, It has nothing to do with me.
Yep.
Have you read Let Them?
I haven't, but I'm aware
Oh,
of
so
it.
good.
It'll change your life. And then I would say, like, something if you're feeling like really, really down. I think it's a Tony Robbins thing that I picked up over time was like, I tell it to my kids, is like, if you are in a bad space and just like everything's not feeling good or you're just not feeling right, is smile for 30 seconds. like set a timer or just smile for 30 seconds, and I can guarantee by the time it's over with, like it's all going to be like whatever, something else is like, I'm fine, you know.
Yeah.
My mom used to always tell me, if you don't know what to say, just smile.
Love
So if
that.
you ever see me just smiling at you, just know I'm like searching for a word to say.
Yeah. So, I mean, it can definitely shift your perspective, like if you're having a bad day. And then another one would be like if you're feeling stuck or just like nothing's moving in your world, or like even overwhelm, is like pick 27 things in your space and move them. Like, so like if you've got a pile of magazines or like anything, so you'll come in here to the office and y'all will notice that like things are not the same as they were the last time. Like, and it's
love
because
that.
like you have to make movement to create the space for like getting rid of the old of what is no longer serving you and creating space for new things in your life. So those would be my little
Mine
tips.
was always a haircut.
Oh,
If I
okay.
felt stuck, I would, or there was things I couldn't control right now that were out of my control, I would go get a haircut because that was the one thing I felt like I could change.
Okay. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I love that about sharing that you just needed a hug. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
you know, and I love the smiling thing too. That's another one is, tying those together, long hugs.
Yeah.
There's so much incredible science behind what that does.
The shared
for people.
energy. Yeah.
And, you know, obviously there needs to be consent between people, you know. I mean, I think it's important to say that.
Yeah,
in this
agreed.
I mean, I have seen people out in public that I can tell were having a hard time, and I've asked their permission if I could
Yeah.
give them a hug. And they're like, I've never been turned down, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, but if you're keeping your energy in that place where they recognize that you're a safe person and that they're like, hey, this person can see that I'm struggling. And it's like, you give them that hug and it's like you've known each other forever. I mean,
Right.
there's so many little things like that
Yeah.
you can do that can literally be a life-changing moment for
It
someone.
can.
100%.
Yeah.
You know?
Most of the time when I meet people, you know, they put a hand out. I didn't do it today, but I'm like, I'm a hugger. Is that okay? And sometimes I'll have people say, well, I'm not, but it's totally okay. You know, like my sister-in-law's been in the family for 23 years, and we finally say we think we've converted her to be a hugger because she's like, I do not like hugs. I'm like, come over here.
That's
Well, yeah,
funny.
and I particularly love to hug other men and tell them that I love them. You know, as they're like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? And I have a family friend, and we joke about it. You know, whenever we're leaving our get together or whatever, I'll hug him and I'm like, I love you. And he's like, he's like, I love that you say that to me, but it's so weird for me. He's like, my dad and I didn't even say that to each other.
Yeah, I think it's
And
something
he's
that
like,
men
don't
need to
stop
start
doing
doing
it.
more.
You
Yeah.
know, he told me, he's like, don't stop doing it. And I was like, I wasn't planning on it.
Yeah,
You
right.
know?
I even try raising my son that way. And the other day he said something about that. He said, it's okay to be a boy and to have emotions. And I said, no, it's very okay. And I'm glad that you're identifying that and that you're saying that. And I think that, again, that's a part of that age group of the 15 to 30-year-olds. They're starting to realize that, that men and boys need to be able to express their feelings and their emotions. It's super important.
Well, and if your son decides to date, I mean, women will find, if he's expressive in that way, they will find that so attractive.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
pretty
He's
cool
already
stuff.
magnetic, I think, kind of like because of that.
He's the best. He's so cute. Yeah.
He doesn't meet a stranger.
This has been awesome. Like, this has been so refreshing for the day. Like, I hope it inspires other people. And so if people want to reach out to you and maybe like have a mastermind group, or, you know, maybe just so you can give them advice, where can they find you?
Yeah, so our company website is thegcfgroup.com. I think my email may or not be on there, but David at the GCF Group is a good email for me. And then I'm on Facebook, just, you know, me personally, David Pokorny, and I like to connect there. So
I love it. Well, we hope that you are uplifted after today's conversation. And so if you want to reach out to us, you can find us at texastrioteam.com. So take care and keep living your best life.